from this perspective, I think Eury would be a more important piece to extend in the short term. But come the offseason, especially if Cabrera manages to keep up this performance, and obviously keeping in mind, of course, that historically he has been inconsistent, which I think would lower his value a little bit to the team. But what would be the likelihood that come the offseason they may choose to, for example, consider extending Cabrera, if not up to extending him actually, in addition to someone like Eury? Or do you think they would choose to keep him on his current contract in favor of maybe trading him down the line?
That is a fascinating question. I think just generally speaking about this organization, they're always, when it comes to extensions, if we get to that point, and to this point, we have not seen as any serious internal movement in terms of Bendix talking to any of his guys about that. He's going to err on the side of locking up hitters over pitchers, just feeling so immensely confident in what they're doing when it comes to pitching development, feeling like none of these guys are quite as indispensable as a good hitter might be. So just with that being said, if when it comes to pitchers, I've talked about this before that with Eury, it's a tough spot just because of how young he is and how quickly he has progressed in a way where, like, I don't know if there's a number that they could realistically give him that he would want to take. He's a guy that is on pace to hit free agency at age 26, if I remember that correctly. As a 26-year-old, we've seen it in the few instances where guys that young hit free agency that they make way more money than anybody could have possibly expected. Teams value that about as much as anything else. Simply being young, just entering your prime if you're hitting free agency. It's such a long way away for him to get there, but at the same time, he knows that if he does get there, even if his arm is barely attached to his body at that point, that teams are going to invest on a guy that is that young and has potentially so many years still ahead of him. And in his case, the pitch characteristics are kind of off the charts. Like his fastball is a true, not just elite, it's in the conversation of the best pitch in baseball in a way that teams are going to be so confident that they can get value out of it down the road because of that. And then everything that goes around it. He is such a unique talent that for him, I don't think he's really risking that much to go year by year through the rest of his pre-arb and arbitration years. Whereas with Cabrera, it's a very different story. We have those years of very uneven performance and availability until this season. So I think whatever advice he's getting would have to point out that there is much more of a risk in terms of just falling back into some of his old habits, or simply if an injury strikes at the wrong time. It's kind of ironic that Cabrera has this injury prone label, even though he's never had a severe injury. He's never undergone surgery for anything at all, much less arm related, whereas Yuri's already had Tommy John. That being said, he's been injured a little bit every single year, dating back to the very beginnings, dating back to when he was a teenager. Every single year, missing time due to something. Where I, he would be a lot more affordable for sure, and I would think that on his perspective, he might be a lot more willing. And they've been very patient with him. They've been more patient with Eddie than I would have been. I've spoken to about that before. Previous opportunities where I thought they may have had a chance to trade him and get something impactful in return, that I would have listened very hard in order to get something done. And they've been really patient, where this is now his fifth big league season. And that's what it's taken for him to start emerging as a legitimate. I don't know if you want how to exactly define it at this point. It's still evolving, but I think you could see a path in being a solid number two starter for this team moving forward in a way that is incredibly valuable. I think that's a guy where it's easier to find common ground on it. It's still a little bit, in both cases, a little bit an interesting dynamic, just because these are players that were inherited by Peter Bendix. They were not acquired on a team where so many guys have been just brought in recently via trade, even waiver claims and other ways of acquisition. Like, he's the guy that was inherited from the previous group. So I wonder if he has that level of actual commitment to him, even regardless of what the results look like. But between the two, I think Eddie is the more likely extension candidate.
And just to add on to that real quick, like they love Cabrera. Peter Bendix is a huge Edward Cabrera fan for a while now since he got here. That's my understanding. Like he's very like like they really like him. They believed in him as a starter. So did they with Max Meyer, and that's why you're seeing the patience, and that's why it's working out. And I don't know if he's still in here, but Jeremiah did mention like the pitch mix change or usage change seems to be working, and the curveball is so good. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any rush to to extend him, but if there is a time to do it, it would definitely be after the season if he continues to do this. And would I extend him? I'm not sure. I'm still a little concerned that, and I think Eli noted this, like historically, there's a lot of inconsistencies with Edward, but just seems like he's finally figured it out. And not just on the pitching side of things, but like mentally, like Edward Cabrera has loosened up so much from where he was in 2022, 2023. He's a completely different person mentally, like just the way he goes about his business, the way he is on the mound. Like Diego Cabrera of 2022, 2023 would not be celebrating a strikeout or wouldn't be doing any of that stuff, or, would have been really mad and would have let an error or something just get to him mentally. And this year in 2025, Lewis noted it, like he said this in the posting, that one home run doesn't make up your whole start, and he went out after that home run and he set down, I believe, the next 12. The Yankees were 0 for 12 after that. So he was awesome. And it really shows the growth, not just what he's done on the mound, but as well mentally. So would I extend him? Yeah, I guess I would look at what the price would look like again, and it's worth noting Peter Bendix has yet to extend anyone on the Marlins since arriving. It's only year two, but you would think that comes soon, and they really like Augustine, they really like Eury. I feel like those would be the two guys you would want to get it done with before the value is too much and you can't extend them. But Edward Cabrera is definitely another guy who kind of falls into is soon to fall into that bucket of you got to get it done.
I would say that something that will fall by the wayside, but shouldn't fall by the wayside, is the fact that today is the first time in his career that he's recorded 100 innings pitched, right? So that is very important for a player that has been injured a long ways of his career. Yes, previously he fell one out short of recording 100 innings pitched, but today he recorded 100 innings pitched for the first time in his career as a major league starting pitcher. So if he continues to stay healthy and, as Kevin said, continues to do what he's doing with his curveball, continues to do what he's doing with especially velocity deep into starts, this is a player that is going to be good. And he's going to prove a lot of people, including myself, wrong if he can continue to be this type of pitcher. There are still question marks about him, absolutely, including walk rate. I think walk rate is still a question mark for this pitcher. I think he overthrows at times. There were times in this particular start where he overthrew the baseball. So I still think there are question marks for him to answer, but he's behind schedule because of his injuries. So he's tried to make up for those, and the more innings he gets, I think the better he's going to be. And he's starting to answer the questions that I have had, and a lot of the questions that a lot of other people have had in terms of his repeatability. So, with that being said, this is the best season he's ever had in his major league career, and I hope it continues.